Martin O'Neill's first full season as Sunderland manager. Can they surprise us?
I don't know if they'd surprise us, but I think we can certainly expect a more impressive campaign than what they had last time out, because it was such a poor start under Steve Bruce when you look at it. It was O'Neill took over a team that had won only 2 of its first 14 games and managed to steer them back to a point where they felt quite stable. So you'd like to imagine, certainly I'm sure he'd like to imagine, that now having had a summer and being in charge of the situation, that shouldn't be a concern, relegation. It should be a case of moving on up from there. So I think it should be a solid campaign for them. They haven't yet made all the business that you assume they're going to have to do this summer. I imagine they have to bring in a striker. We know that there's various reports. Unfortunately, at the moment, nothing has been done, and this is at time of recording, which unfortunately could change before this gets broadcast. But a striker is needed because Nicklas Bendtner has left, and for all that he didn't turn out to be the world beater that he continues to proclaim himself to be, he was their leading scorer in the league last season with 8 goals. So there's a need for someone to fill that gap, but there's some real solidity through the side. I think when you look right through from defence to attack, you can see some good players.
Surely very significant that the likes of Sessègnon, who I think was rumoured maybe to be poached elsewhere, is still around.
Yeah, I think Sessegnon's a huge, a coup is maybe overstating it, but it's a big deal for them this summer to be holding on to Sessègnon. I think he's a really important player for them. I think Seb Larsson in midfield is a hugely important player for them, and perhaps one of the, in my opinion, the more underrated players in the league. I think he's been doing a fantastic job for years now, and maybe one of the players that Wenger on some level regrets letting leave Arsenal. But there's others there. I think when you look at the defence and you talk about Carlos Cuellar, who's the one piece of business coming in, and it was already a solid defence, and I think that's going to continue to be a strong point for them. But there's others there. I think Jack Colback is a player that we're going to be hearing a lot more about and is developing into a really good young player. And even more obviously than him, McLean coming through after O'Neill took the job in January and really hadn't played, I don't think, to that point, and really had an exceptional second half to the season under O'Neill. So there's a lot of talented young players in that midfield that I think can be the core of something great. And if you've got Sessègnon in front of them as well, really the big gap is still just who's going to score the goals, who's going to be the guy at the front of this. But I see a solid Premier League team there.